Hey, what's up guys? Sam here from HS Media TV on YouTube. Today with part 2 of my HUD tutorial series, and like I promised in the last video, this time I will show you some more advanced techniques I use to create some of these interfaces you can see right here. Okay, so what exactly do I mean by advanced techniques? Well, first I will show you a method how you can create this symmetric divided shape right here. Then I will show you a method how you can create this scale circle or this clock element, I don't know how you want to call it. Then I will show you two methods how you can align your text layers around your circular shapes. And finally I will show you my way for creating these edged outlines. Okay, so all in all I will show you 4 different methods, and I think after that you're ready to start working on your own complicated HUD interfaces. So yeah, with that being said, I think we now can start. So like always, create a new composition, call it composite, choose the length you want. I now choose something around 30 seconds. It really doesn't matter right now. Click OK. And like in the last video, we want to activate our save title. So click on save title right here and then choose your elliptic freeform tool at the top of your program and just draw a nice, perfect symmetric circle. Okay, I think the size is a bit too big, so hit U 2 times to open up your settings. First you want to once again deselect our surface right here and increase our edge to something around 50 looks good, I think. And then just decrease your circle. I think something around, let's say 150. Yeah, I think that looks good. Okay, so after that, go to this option menu right here. I think it's called Add in English, and just choose Trim Path. Drag this modifier into your ellipse 1 structure, and then open up your settings. So first you want to choose our start value to something around, let's say 5, and our end value to, let's say something around, I think 25 is perfect. Then once again go to your add menu right here and choose repeater. Then open up this settings and choose amount of copies 4. And then open up this repeater transformation settings. And first change your position to 0 and your amount of and your rotation to, let's say, 90 degrees. Yeah, perfect. One very important tip on the side for this repeater modifier, and it's always the amount of copies multiplied with the rotation must be 360 degrees. So for example, if you want 180 copies, your rotation must be 2 degrees. So it's always this multiplied with this equals 360 degrees. Okay, so with that being said, let's hit U to close our settings. And now we can use our guidelines to make it a bit more centered. So hit R for rotation and just offset it a bit to, let's say, something around -8 in this case. Or let's say -7, I don't know. Or -9, sorry. Yeah, I think -9 looks perfect. And yeah, that's my way for creating these kind of shapes. Of course, you can use the trim path modifier to create even more complex shapes. It's always just messing around until you get what you want. Okay, so after that it's now time to create our clock or scale interface. So first deselect your current layer, then select your pen tool and start drawing a nice straight line starting from the center of your image. By the way, if you press Shift and click, your line stays perfectly straight. Okay, so then select your first point again and just move it out. And the reason why I do that is simply because I want to make sure that my pivot point right here is always perfectly centered. Okay, so after that I hit U 2 times again to open up my settings, deselect my surface and increase my edge thickness to something around, let's say 2. Yeah, I think 2 looks good. Okay, then add your repeater modifier again. Of course, drag it into your Form 1 layer. Then open up your settings and change the amount of copies again to 4. Then your position to 0 and your rotation to 90 degrees. So like before, we now get 4 perfect straight lines. Okay, so after that we can close our Form 1 layer, select it and click Ctrl D to duplicate it. Then open up your settings, especially your repeater settings. Change the amount of copies to 20. Then open up your transformation settings and change your rotation to, I think it must be 18 degrees. Yeah, I think that's perfect. And yeah, now we want to customize our path a bit more. So select our Form 2 path and just make it a bit smaller. So maybe something like that looks good. Okay, then close your Form 2 and just hit Ctrl D again to duplicate it one last time. Open up your settings. Change the amount of copies to 60. And your rotation to 6 degrees. Then once again select your form and just make it even smaller than before. So maybe something like that looks good. Okay, now you can hit U to close our settings. And yeah, as you can see, we now created our clock interface. Of course, you can create different shapes with different spaces between these lines. Just always keep in mind the amount of copies and your rotation must be 360 degrees. By the way, please don't be mad if I repeat this too often, but I think it's very important to keep that in mind because otherwise you will really struggle with this path modifier. So yeah, with that being said, we can now move on with our text layers. So just create a text layer, for example, start with 0, 0. Then move your text to the center of your image because you will also align this one at the very center of our image. For that I always use these middle dots right here. So just something like that, okay. And then just move it up until something like here. Okay, I think that looks good. And then select your pen behind tool and move your pivot point to the center of to the center of your composition. Like always, try to be as exact as possible. So I think something like that looks good. And after that, we can just hit Ctrl D to duplicate this layer. Then hit R for rotation. And for example, let's say we want our text to be at 90 degrees. So just type in 90 degrees and double click it and change the number to 90 degrees. And with that principle, we can now start to fill out our whole scale. So for example, hit Ctrl D again, type in 180 degrees, and so on and so on. Like I said, it's always the same principle. And of course, if you want, you can start adding a number or text layer for all of these single lines right here. And yeah, depending on your project, this can be very time consuming, but in my opinion, it's the best option or the most accurate option to align your text layers around your circular shapes. But like I said in the beginning, I will show you now a second way to do that. It's maybe a bit quicker, but in my opinion, it's not as accurate and I usually don't like it, but I will show it to you anyways. So once again, create a new text layer, call it maybe 00 again. Okay, and yeah, let's make our first 3 layers invisible because it may be a bit confusing. So then again, select your new layer and choose elliptic tool and just draw a nice, perfectly circle starting again from the center of your image. Okay, and then just open up this text option and choose path and select your mask 1 as your path. And yeah, as you can see, our text is now moving around this circular path and you want to move it outside this circle, so just choose invert circle, activate, okay, and then just use your normal cursor right here. And if you move in closer, you can now see that this cursor is changing, so now we can start moving our text layer around this elliptic shape. Okay. And yeah, I think that's enough to understand what to do with that. Of course, you can now duplicate this layer, move it again to 90 degrees, for example, double click to change the name. And yeah, just repeat the step to create a full circle for your element. Okay, so let's close all these settings. Okay, And yeah, now it's time to start with our last element. So once again, create a new circle. Okay, hit U 2 times. Oh, sorry. Hit U 2 times. Deselect your surface and increase your edge to something around 2. Then select your ellipse 1, duplicate it. Then increase your edge to something like, let's say, 15. Okay. And of course, increase your radius, that it just starts to sit on top of your first ellipse. So in this case, let's say something like, yeah, something like that looks good. Okay. And then we want to add some more parts for this ellipse. So like in the first tutorial, click on the plus icon for your stroke settings and just mess around with your sliders right here. Of course, you can add more details, but to keep it simple, I will now just add simple strokes. So I think that looks quite okay. Then select your form layer right here and choose your pen tool. And let's zoom in a bit. And now we can start drawing our triangle shapes. So for example, something like that. Okay. And of course we want to now activate our surface again and deselect our edge. And of course change the color from red to white. And yeah, after that, just move around your circle and always try to draw a triangle which is the same size. So I don't know, something like that or something like that. Okay, I think you get the point. And yeah, like always, the more elements you add, the longer it will take for you to finish these kind of steps, but in the end it will look better if you add more and more details. So yeah, that's it for my advanced tutorial. Like I said in the first tutorial, I will make a third part where I will show you in full detail how I created this kind of interface. This will also be my last tutorial about creating HUD interfaces, because I think now you know all the basics. At least that's everything I know to create my interfaces. Just mess around, play around with everything you learned today, and I hope I see you next time. Stay creative and yeah, like always, have fun.